Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today we are going to talk about a brand new palette from Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Chamonix Apres-Ski palette. Sorry, I Googled how to say that. If I messed it up, then I apologize. I'm trying my best over here. This is really exciting, particularly to me, because last year, Nomad Cosmetics had the highest number of palettes on my favorites list at the end of the year. They have set a very high bar for themselves in my mind. This palette will be releasing on the Nomad site on January 14th. It will be priced at 49 US dollars. However, you can use my affiliate code. It's just my first name, Amanda, and that will save you 10% on pretty much everything on their site. I do think that sale items are excluded, but that makes sense. And Nomad confirmed with me that this is not a limited edition item, which in their world means they plan on having this palette available for at least the next 12 months. So no FOMO. If you're interested in this one, you don't have to jump on it right away. They plan on having this one around for a while. As usual for my palette reviews, I want to show you a close-up look at the palette and the packaging. We're going to do finger and brush swatches. I have a couple of comparison swatches, and I also have two eye looks for this one. What I'm wearing right now is a combination of the pink and green sections. See, we have three different sort of monochromatic sections. So a pink, a green, and then this like periwinkle blue purple section. So I do have another look that's more focused on these colors. And then I'll also show you the look I'm wearing today, which has the green and pink sections combined. I'm very excited to dive into this après-ski palette. So let's just start first with a close-up look at the palette packaging and the eyeshadow pans. This is the front cover art for both the palette and the outer carton, the box that the palette comes in. We have a really beautiful, very realistic scene of the side of the mountain. Everybody's hanging out after skiing, having some drinks, having some snacks. There's some beautiful snowy mountains in the background. And then on the back of the palette, we see a depiction of the shades inside and a little ski slope in the background too. All of Nomad's palettes are cruelty free and vegan. This one is no different. And each one of their palettes, inspired by a different location, also has a different organization that they support. So I'm going to link this one, Inspire Mont Blanc, down in the description if you're interested in what they do. You can go and check out their website. Inside the palette here, we have a nice big mirror. There are 18 shades with a very satisfying, completely even split between mattes and shimmers. So each one of these columns will be a row of shimmers, a row of mattes, a row of shimmers, a row of mattes, and those create little six-pan color stories, each one made up of three matte shades and three shimmer shades, which I find to be very easy to digest, easy to look at, but also very user friendly, especially for someone who may just be dipping into colors or these kinds of colors for the first time. And each one of the eyeshadow pans has a little imprint stamped into that powder. So you'll see some cabins, ski lifts, fondue, the nomad symbol, all kinds of relevant little pictures. I always like that detail. I just think that it adds a little bit of fun and a little bit of a more luxurious feel to the palette. So now that you've seen this après-ski palette up close, I think that it's time we see it in action. I'm going to start off with the look that you see me wearing throughout the talking portions of this video. The pink and green look, I think it ends up looking a little bit more of like a teal blue than green, but I think it looked more green in person than it does on camera. First, I just primed my eyelids with my Ulta matte eye primer, and now I'm going to use a combination of the two lightest matte pink shades and lay that down just very haphazardly, not being too precise with this, in the crease area of my lid with a big fluffy brush. And I'm using that almost as a base shade for this darker pinky color. This shade looks more of a lavendery, almost purple type of color once it's applied, especially mixed with these lighter matte shades in the palette. It's not quite as bright of a true pink as at least I was expecting it to be, just based on what it looks like visually in the eyeshadow pan. I absolutely am somebody who loves to mix my mattes and customize the matte shades in a palette, and these just mix together so lovely, so easily. The blending just created a whole new shade, and I love the way that it still has some softness even when the color's being built up. So I used a fluffy flat brush to pat on some of the deepest green shade. And now I'm going to mix the two lighter green matte shades and just sort of smudge that along the outer edge of that other green shade up on the lid, and then also really applying that to the lower lash line as well so that I can have some balance with that green in the look. Now for one of my favorite shades in the entire palette, this gorgeous shimmery bright green called Aperitif. I just patted this right on top of the darker green matte shade so that the two can just come off as a little bit darker when they're layered up. And then I'm going to use this light pink shimmer called Last Run, and I'm going to blend that from the inner corner of the eye all the way towards the center of the lid, towards the edge of that deeper green combo that I put on the very outer part of my lids. And then to bring it all together, I'm using the very first shade in the palette. This is a super shifty, shimmery, transparent base with a pink and blue super strong shift. So I'm packing that right on the center of the lid where those two colors, the pink and the green, meet. It gives not really an ombre, not really a fade, but almost like a combination of an ombre and a spotlight type of look. I just think that this is really fun. I think that it's really flattering. And as you all probably know by now, it's also really easy to do. You don't have to be super precise with this look. And I love that because I am not great. Technically, I'm not a great technician. I'm not great with precision. I just like to throw on some colors and see how they look. And this is the perfect example of when that technique goes right, thankfully. For my second look, I wanted to focus more on the periwinkle blues and purples part of the palette. So I'm starting off my look the same way. This is how I start off all my looks. Just a little bit of my favorite eye base all over both lids. And now I'm going to combine these two light bluish matte shades. I would say one is blue, one is definitely more of a periwinkle. And those two just really blended together on a fluffy brush. And then I'm going to put that all over the crease, but I'm going to really bring it down a little bit further than I usually would. Typically, for this transition type shade, I'm trying to build and blend really into the crease of the eye and up towards my brows. But for this look, I'm focusing a lot of that color on the top half of my actual eyelid. Then I'm going to use this super dark shade. This is like a purpley, plummy brown. And just on a little pencil brush, I'm really messily smudging that along the upper and lower lash lines, sort of like a faux liner, but I'm not even trying to be precise because I know that I'm going to layer up a bunch of shadows and go for more of that undone, smudgy type of look. Then to bring everything together, I'm going to use this soft silvery purple shade, and I'm just going to pack that all over my lid using my fingertip. I'm really smudging it into the other matte shades that are already on my lid. And after that all over lid color is applied, I went back in with the pencil brush and just touched up just the very edges of that smudgy, smoky little faux liner. I felt like the lid shimmer needed a little bit more dimension, so I'm using this medium blue color called Mountain Chalet. This is a really shifty blue, and I'm smudging that and just pressing it into the outer part of my lid so that I can get a little bit of depth, a little bit of shift. I just felt like I was really missing that. And then because I cannot stop myself and I must always morph into a sparkly snowflake fairy when I'm using this palette, I used a little bit of this very pale minty green sparkly shifty shade. I packed that along the inner part of my lower lash line. And then I'm also going to add that as a bit of a brow bone highlight. I just felt like this look could not have too much sparkle. And I actually find myself thinking that about a lot of eyeshadow looks. But for this one, I added some of the ColourPop BFF cream gel liner in the shade Prance to my lower waterline. And I think that that really just added a pop to this look that I was searching for. It also contrasts nicely with that darker smudged shade along the lash line. I actually love the way this look turned out. I felt a little wayward as I was applying it because I didn't go in with a plan. I just wanted to play with some of these colors. And I actually ended up loving this makeup so much. In previous pastel looks that I've done, I felt like the colors just didn't have any liveliness to them. I always felt like pastels looked flat and washed out on me. And this palette never makes me feel that way. I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited by it, because not only did it subvert my own expectations, but it's also just giving me a whole new playground of colors that I had really ruled out for daily wear because I just decided that I didn't like them and they didn't look good on me. But in the context of this palette, I think that this looks really flattering and it was really fun to build up these colors and create this look. So I guess if you had on your 2025 bingo card, Amanda, Makeup.Just.For.Fun actually likes pastels, well, maybe you can cross that one off, and we're not even halfway through January yet. Last but not least, let's take a look at some swatches of the Apres-Ski palette. As usual, the finger swatches are pictured on top, and then each corresponding brush swatch is directly below. I don't use any primer. I don't dampen my brush. These are just the shadows swiped straight onto my skin. Considering how light in tone some of these colors are, I'm very impressed that the brush swatches are even showing up on my very pale skin to begin with. I kind of expect that from all of these really pale shades. So, in general, as far as performance goes for both swatching, application, and wear, I'm impressed across the board. Now, let's do comparisons. We all want to see them. First up, I pulled two Nomad palettes that I thought would give us the closest comparison. The Provence palette, which really drew my attention for comparisons because of the pinks, which you can see here are quite a bit warmer than the pink shades in the Après-Ski palette. Overall, I would say you could get some very similar looks if you have the Provence and Whistler palettes. In general, it is lacking that super, super light component, but color story wise, pretty close. The next thing that came to mind for me was the Eternal Twilight palette. I knew that I recognized this pink, emerald green, gray, kind of dusty grayish periwinkle color scheme, but we are lacking a lot of shadows for comparison. And I will say that the whole more pink neutral side of Eternal Twilight is much, much warmer in general. Really, only those last handful of shades that are worth comparing for these two palettes. Lastly, what I was anticipating being the absolute best comparison overall, and I do think that's where we've landed, is the ColourPop Aurora Struck palette. These are not a ton of one-to-one exact dupable type of shades, but I do think in general, you would get a lot of the same types of looks, particularly from those greens and blues. So I do think that in my own collection, the Aurora Struck palette is probably the closest match for Apres-Ski. If you've watched many of my videos before, then you are aware that I don't love a pastel. I don't love a pink eyeshadow. I don't love a blue eyeshadow. So it is against all odds that I am a fan of this palette. I genuinely feel like this is the way, this is the gateway to get me to enjoy pastels because of the curation of shades, because of the selection of finishes, because of the inclusion of some of these richer jewel tone type of colors. It makes me feel like I'm not even looking at a pastel palette, and certainly not every single shadow in here is a pastel shade, but this is a heavily pastel palette, and on paper, I should not like this at all. In reality, I love this palette. I should have known that it would be Nomad Cosmetics that would make me love a pastel selection like this, especially one that includes so much pink and frankly, quite a bit of blue as well. I love the way that many of these tones, even though they're light, even though we have some of these really white-based shadows, they don't feel flat and desaturated. It still feels like a lively, colorful selection, even though it's not super in your face with boldness and saturation, and it still manages to be really rich and dynamic. I love this type of layout. My eyeballs love the orderliness of it. I really like the three shimmers, three mattes, three shimmers, three mattes. That's very satisfying. This scratches an itch in my brain layout wise that I just have to acknowledge. This is, can't believe it. Can't believe that I'm saying this, but also, should we really be surprised? Based on how much Nomad dominated my palette favorites last year, I shouldn't be as surprised as I am, but I'm still surprised that I love a very pastel forward palette. I feel inspired by it. It's fun to use. It's user friendly. I'm shocked to say it, but I really like it. I would love to hear what you think about this palette. Are you interested? Are you as excited as I am to see what else they have in store for us this year? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Okay. All right. Okay. I wore my snowflake earrings because it's après-ski. I Googled the pronunciation. I really do try my best. I am terrible at pronouncing French words. If you give me words in Spanish, I can nail that, okay? But pronunciation escapes me. I do try my best. I Google, I like practice. I start practicing before I even turn the camera on. I really do try my best. I know. I apologize to my French speaking friends because I know that I butcher it, but I do try. You know, that's something, I think. hopefully I can get all this stuff done in time because we're supposed to have a huge snowstorm, and if my power goes out, then I cannot upload this video. So I'm gonna try to get ahead of the curve today. Sometimes I'm good at that, sometimes I am the worst at that. So let's hope for good at that. It's always a roll of the dice. Fitting that this palette video will hopefully be posted on the same day that we'll actually have snow here for the first time in the 2 years that we've been in this house. It doesn't really snow here that often, so everybody's gonna go crazy. I already have my groceries and my firewood, okay? Everybody else can fight for what's left tomorrow, but I will be editing YouTube videos. Last year, I found myself loving blue eyeshadows and lots of palettes with lots of blue. This year, maybe the final frontier is me loving pastels. I don't really see that happening, but look, I didn't see the blue eyeshadow coming either, so you never know. Never say never. One more little thing to film. Well, actually, two more things to film. Plus, I need to do swatches. Okay, I have a lot more stuff to film. But I'm on track. I am on track to accomplish what I need to do today. And if you are somebody who has creative procrastination, that's a big win. It's a big win in my world. The little shifty shade in the center of the lid. Chef's kiss. It really makes the look. I need to film a little bit more, edit so much stuff so that hopefully I can have some videos ready for you. And I also have one more thing on my list. It's to remind you that I love your face. Did you know I was going to say that? I bet you did. See you later. Bye.